Alright guys, welcome back. I've got an ALH wiring harness here. Got a little hotel time, figured I could do a little wiring, getting started on the first harness I need to get built here. And I want to start out by saying anybody that has watched my first videos on pulling wiring harnesses out of cars, I apologize. I almost want to just delete the video, to be completely honest, because literally it takes 15 or 20 minutes to get this much of the wiring out of the car, and this is all that you need for just about any swap as far as the ALH harness goes. I can't believe I never looked into the wiring more. I was just a little too scared of it. But anyway, hopefully this will shine some light on the whole process for people and just simplify this down. So to start with, I'm going to go ahead and just show you guys actually pulling this out of a car. Here I've got a clip just of that process to just simplify that part for you. So here we are with this is an 03 ALH Jetta. Obviously you could pull the wiring out before the engine, but this one already has the engine pulled. So we've got the ECU exposed there. This was an auto car, so it's also got the transmission controller right here. So just to start with, basically you get this stuff pulled out, and if you can kind of remember from my wiring harness picture there, we're going to cut it. Basically this big harness here, we'll cut it just past the grounds. You don't really need to worry about the grounds, but you can cut it right there. And then you'll cut it again right here where it goes to the trans controller, but you want to leave these wires right here exposed, and those you're going to trace out all the way along here, and it goes behind a bunch of stuff, but this is your map sensor. So you got to get that pulled out over to there, and that pretty much is your whole big plug right there cut off. And then if you look at this little plug again, like I was saying, you really don't have to touch it much. You trace that out, it's going to come into here, and then there's a piece right here that ends up going back to the other harness. You cut that off, it's going to this plug back here in the corner. You can just cut that off there, and then that goes all the way down to all your sensors that I already have exposed on the other harness there. So yeah, that is really all you need to pull off for right now. You're going to need your N75 and the plug for it, and there's a few other little things, but basically that's the gist to get your basic harness going. So anyway, just breaking it down here, the crazy part that I didn't realize is just how easy it is to take this small side plug, whole harness out, and it's basically only connected to the engine. It doesn't have it. I know any other harness I've looked at just gets really more in depth, and they're wound together. So you've got most of your engine here. Obviously we unplugged this connector there, and then if you go ahead and cut probably like a foot back here, go ahead and strip the insulation. I hate messing with this stuff, but if you do it just far enough, you can pull your map sensor right here, get your map sensor clear out like I showed, and you don't even have to touch those wires. So then, as long as you can set your ECU up somewhere just inside the cab or in the engine bay and make this length work for you, that eliminates, I want to say, over 50% of the wires you have to touch. So I'll go through it here, but basically we're going to leave all the original um, injection pump harness. I am going to go ahead and cut the glow plugs off. I'm going to just do a push button glow plug setup on most of these ALHs, but you can follow the wiring harness or the wiring diagram and get that squared away if you want to. This one's already been kind of botched together anyway. And then you've got your coolant sensor. You want to save your speed sensor, your VSS, for cruise control. And yeah, the crank and the needle lift sensor are all right here. So I'll show you that later, but we'll have that all cleaned up. Then about the only other things you're going to need are your OBD2 port, your pedal wiring, and then I did cut this whole harness off here that goes to all the EGR stuff, but the only one you really need is the wastegate actuator, the N75 plug. So we'll go with that, and then obviously your power wires are going to come out of here. So then we'll go ahead and look at the schematics over here. So David Shoemaker made this pretty sweet pinout. Gotta thank him for that. It really just goes into detail as far as where everything needs to go, as well as the colors and pinouts of the plugs themselves for a lot of your basic setup, and that really helps. And one thing I marked here, when you're looking at the big diagram over here, it doesn't actually show you where the two plugs split, and it's right there between 73 and 86 is the first point on the small plug. So it kind of confuses you because you think this is one plug here, and then your next plug is over here, but the big plug actually runs all the way down to right there, and this is the first wire there. So anyway, this is the early 2-wire, the schematics. The 4-wire glow plug schematic is mostly only different in the glow plugs themselves, which again I'm not even getting into, so for the most part they're all identical there. But I did go ahead and show you guys how much of this you can X off, as far as if you do this different power wiring that I'm going to show you. Most of this top stuff here, all dealing with the fuses, we're all going to convert that to one fuse, or I guess one main fuse and then one smaller key on fuse, and then that really puts it down to, I want to say it's under 20 wires here. I haven't actually counted, but you've got your throttle position, your map sensor. Again, that's already done. Then we'll go to the next page. Almost everything gets deleted. This is your brake pedal switch and your clutch switch if you're going to do cruise. Otherwise, you will still need the brake pedal wired if you don't want the that dead pedal when you first take off, unless your tuner can go ahead and just turn that off for you if you don't ever plan on having cruise. And then there's just one power wire here for the I can't remember, the cold start injector. It's in the wiring harness there. I'll show you guys once we get it wired. And then the N75 obviously needs both wires done. But all of this other stuff, crank sensor, needle lift, coolant temp, all the wiring to the injection pump, fuel cutoff, all that stuff is basically pre-wired for you. You don't even have to touch it. So anyway, we'll go ahead and get started here, and I'll show you the basic power setup I make and get it kicked on so we can see the ECU talking. Okay, I laid this out on the bed here. Nice white bed to get all dirty. And anyway, I wanted to go over this power wiring before I get it tied up too much, because it is a little confusing. There's honestly 50% of the wiring you're going to do is on the power circuit and everything that needs input, or needs 12 volts. So to start with, I get rid of basically the whole setup that VW uses to kick the relay on and all of the different components of the car, and replace it with this simple 87 power relay, just an automotive relay. You can get it right at the store or order it online. And so it's pretty much, it has a negative and a positive that are connected to a coil, and that closes the two big main connectors together. So if you can kind of see here, I've got the two main negatives tied together. They're going to ground, and that ground is also fed to the ground that the 87 relay needs. And then if you trace this here, the two positive wires are going to go through into the relay, which will then lose power as soon as you disconnect the positive to it. And then that's being fed over here, and this will be your main power to either your battery or anything. You can run a 30 amp. I actually probably run a 25 amp fuse. That's all I've ever needed to do. And so that's your main feed for your power. And then you can kind of see here, but this other small wire, that's going to be your kick-on wire. I ran over here. This will go to the key. That'll trigger your relay to kick on. And then you can see here the OBD port. I tied its two ground wires to that same ground on the kick-on for the relay. And then you'll want that to run all the time. So you got to run a separate power here. That can go to pretty much anywhere in the vehicle. It doesn't have to go clear out to the battery. So I didn't make it quite as long. And then, so once that power is coming in on this side, it's kind of crossed here, but once the relay kicks on, that's going to feed your main power to your ECU. And I also tie it off of that, and when you do that, you want to put another smaller, like a 10 or 15 amp fuse on, and that is going to go to all the other wires that need power. And so you could do it different than this. It does look a little confusing here, but there are, on this main, the bigger plug here, there's going to be two wires coming right off of it that were kick-on power that they need. That's going to be your blue and yellow and your black and purple. So I've got those tied there to come on whenever the relay kicks on through the fuse. And it also gets fed this way. It's a little confusing because you'll remember this plug is right here, and that actually ties the two plugs together over here, but it ties them together clear over here. If you don't want to mess with this, you're going to have to run a couple of them back, because this has another kick-on wire. This one is black and green, as well as the ones, now these ones actually go out to your sensors, but all of this stuff needs power when you kick on. But it's basically just the three wires that actually go back to the ECU. So this this red, and I believe it's purple again, red and purple, that one comes out and goes to your injection pump. And then there's also the yellow and black that runs to the, what's it called here, the cold start injector, that yellow and black. So we're feeding that power, as well as this one is also stubbed off of here to go to your N75 for your turbo actuator. Now then, that only leaves this red wire to go clear back to the big plug over there. You'll have to run that one back, but that is literally almost all the wiring you have to do out to the engine bay. And then the only major thing left here is going to be tying your 5 wires to your throttle pedal into here. I'm not going to go over that. You'll be able to look at the harness here. Schematic and tell it's pretty straightforward. They all go to that big plug. It's a little confusing because the big plug is also, like I was saying, it's at the top here. They split right here in between, or actually right in between 81 and 86. They split. So once you figure that out, it's pretty straightforward. All these ones that are going to the right, they actually end up going up, and they're still going to the big plug there. So that makes it pretty easy. Just make that throttle pedal however long you need to get to where you're going. And the only real things left here are going to be your clutch and your brake pedal. If you don't, like I was saying, if you don't want that dead pedal and you just want to wire them in for now, or just kind of hot wire them, you need to send power to that white yellow, and the clutch pedal is also a white but red, so those two both go over here into the big plug. So you'll need to find those 2 white wires and feed those power, because they're actually getting power here from this blue. You can see that goes up to there, and the red does the same thing, gets power from straight up there, hot at all times. Anyway, you don't really need that to be hot all the time because you're not running the brake lights. So you can kind of just get the idea that there's one red that doesn't need it, but the 2 white do. And you can wire it however you want, whether you're going to use the brake pedal and the clutch for cruise control or not. But that is the setup you'll need to get it started. So let's go ahead and get this taped up a little here, and I'll power it up for you guys and show you how it works. Alright, I got it all set up here with a little test battery, my computer. I did go ahead and wire in the throttle pedal here, just the 6 wires for that. You can see them coming off here, and the only other wire was the N75 valve controller, so I got that wired. So basically you are looking at a complete harness right here, ready to go. And again, like I was saying, that that relay is got full power right now with ground, and then the full-time power that goes right to the relay is hooked up, as well as that other wire is for the OBD port, which, as you can see, it is powered up. So as soon as you go ahead and take my key on wire right here, you can hear that click on, and we should be able to go over here, go to engine, and we have an ECU talking. So now we can go to measuring blocks, and of course not much is going to read here, but we've got accelerator position right there, so I should be able to squeeze this and see that the throttle is responding. So that is going to be the end of this episode. I don't have anything to test it on right now, obviously, but you can see that is about all it takes, guys. Get that cleaned up and tape it up, or get some wire loom for it, however you want to clean it up. And then again, you've got all the wires here left over for, there's just like 3 wires for cruise along with the brake pedal and clutch pedal switches. But as is, this would get you on the road right there. So hopefully that helps somebody out and just shows you how pretty easy this is. I mean, it does take some time. I'm not going to say it's a 30-minute job or anything, but if you take your time and just go through those schematics really well, you can definitely do this yourself. So thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.